I want to welcome you to our Montgomery Village Public Safety Town Hall meeting this evening. I really want to thank you for joining us in this unique format. Of course, with COVID on the rise, unfortunately, as we see in our community, it is not safe for us to meet in person in a large grouping as we normally would. And so I wanted to make sure that we seize the opportunity before we enter into the holiday season to make sure that we were talking about all of the things that were important to keep you safe in your community. This was all started because we have a brand new commander of the 6th District, Commander Michael Ward, who you will hear from momentarily. And I'm very excited. I've known Commander Ward for quite some time and think that he's going to bring some great things to the village. But certainly wanted to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to meet him, to ask questions, to lay out expectations, to express concerns, all of the things that are important when we talk about an organization that is there to protect and serve our community, our Montgomery County Police Department. But we would be remiss if we talked about public safety and didn't also talk about all the other aspects of public safety as well. And so quickly we realized that we would be doing a disservice to our community if we did not also have an opportunity to hear from our fire chief about some of the things that are going on when it comes to this season and the risks that are posed. I know that Chief Goldstein was just talking about a fire that happened last night. It was a massive fire. We want to make sure that we keep our community safe. And then, of course, with COVID-19, we've seen that it's wrecked our economy and really made it difficult for a lot of people to continue to stay in their homes. And two of the people who deal with evictions, but who also deal with some of the aspects around scams that are out there to try and take advantage of you during COVID, our sheriff and our state's attorney, John McCarthy, are on the call as well. So again, you've got chock full of great information and an opportunity to ask a lot of questions. I encourage you to make sure you're utilizing our Q&A feature. When we get to a point after the presentations, I'll make sure that we try and answer some of those. I also have my staff working diligently on Facebook. So we're live on Facebook. So hello to all my Facebook Live folks that are watching. And we'll be answering questions on Facebook Live as well. They'll be sending those over live stream to us so that we can try and get as many questions in as possible. So let me just say this. As your council member of the 2nd District, it really is important for me to make sure that my community is always in touch and empowered. And the greatest way to do that is to have meetings like this to where we can talk about issues that are important to us. I don't have an agenda. My agenda is solely to make sure that you hear from the folks who are serving you in the community and that they hear from you. That's pretty much all this is. And I want to make sure that you understand that this is an opportunity for you and encourage you to make sure that your voices are heard. I will just ask, this is a time to be respectful. This is a time to make sure that even though we may have strong views or opinions, that we do so respectfully. Everyone who is here has dedicated themselves to whatever craft they are in, whether it's our police, our fire, our sheriff, our state's attorney, and they've given of themselves to be in these positions. And so I hope we treat them accordingly, while at the same time are very open about some of the concerns and questions we may have. So those are the ground rules, folks, okay? So no cursing, no any of those kinds of things. We're not gonna ask any questions like that. We're not gonna put them on live, of course, for any of those kind of things to happen. But I know my folks in the 2nd District don't do those kinds of things anyway. And so from that perspective, I know that this is going to be a great meeting. Let me just close by saying this. Thank you. Thank you to each and every one of you for showing your humanity during this pandemic. This has been something that has touched all of us. Many of us have unfortunately lost loved ones to COVID. Many of us continue to be heartbroken by the tragedies that we see across this country when it comes to the loss of life via racial unrest and folks who are not adhering to the proper policies and procedures that were outlined when it comes to how they interact with the public. But we're also want to make sure that we understand that our police are here, our public safety officials are here to continue to protect and serve. They are the ones who are running into buildings and making sure that folks are safe. And so from that perspective, we certainly want to make sure that we do everything to help support them in that effort to keep us safe, and also that we ensure that they're doing the same things by adhering to everything that they need to make sure that we're all right. I wanted to acknowledge a few folks that are here before I turn to our panelists. I know that we have Council President Sidney Katz. Mr. Katz, would you just like to say a brief hello to everyone?
I would, and thank you very, very much to my friend and colleague, Councilmember Craig Rice. Thank you for doing this. I'm Sidney Katz. I'm this year's president of the County Council. I think I have a whole month left before we change the County Council presidency. I'm also the District 3 County Council member, which is the neighbor of District 2. I have many friends and family that live in Montgomery Village and in District 2, so it's always good to be with them as well. I want to thank all the panelists for being here, and I can tell you my role this evening is to listen to the panelists and to listen to the public to hear what you have to say as well. So thank you very much, Craig.
Well, thank you very much, Council President. And I was remiss in forgetting that he's not only the Council President, but he's also chair of our Public Safety Committee. So aptly, certainly someone who should be here, certainly as we talk about public safety in a neighboring district, District 3, right across the street. Let me turn to Councilmember Gabe Albornoz, our chair of our Health and Human Services Committee, and a member of the Public Safety Committee to say hello as well.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Rice. Really excited to hear the presentations tonight and the feedback from the community. This is a critically important issue. I have the honor of serving at large on the council, and also in addition to serving as chair of the HHS committee, serve on the Public Safety Committee as well. So look forward to the discussion and the presentations, and thank you for your leadership, Councilmember Rice, on this and so many other issues.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Albornoz, and thank you for continuing to lead the fight when it comes to health and human services, certainly something that is very, very important. And I know we're going to touch on some of those issues around that, so it's really helpful to have you here as well. Let me turn to my good friend. We also have the state represented here this evening, Delegate Gabriel Acevedo. So, Delegate Acevedo, would you like to just say a few greetings?
Yeah, thank you so much, Councilmember Rice, and thank you to your office for convening this really important discussion. As was mentioned, my name is Gabriel Acevedo. I have the privilege of representing District 39, which includes all of Montgomery Village. I'm a resident of Montgomery Village. I have been for a very long time, and I love this community. I recognize that we do have some challenges around public safety. But I believe that as a community, we can certainly come together and work with law enforcement to ensure that our communities are safe. I also serve on the House Appropriations Committee and its Public Safety and Administration Subcommittee. So this is certainly a relevant topic that I want to ensure that I'm listening to the community as well as stakeholders. And thank you again for everyone for joining this evening. I do want to say really quickly that I was appointed by the Speaker to the House Work Group on Police Accountability, and we've been having a lot of robust discussions about what public safety looks like. And so I encourage folks to reach out to my office if you have any questions or if you have any concerns as to how we as a community move forward and ensure that we're keeping each and every one safe. So thank you again, Councilmember Rice. It is good to see some council colleagues on here, and looking forward to listening and working with the community.
Well, thank you very much, Delegate Acevedo. I wanted to acknowledge a couple other people that are on the call with us this evening, including from the State's Attorney's Office, former Councilmember Phil Andrews, who used to represent District 3. So good evening, Councilmember Andrews. Thank you, or former Councilmember Andrews. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. Also, Eric Friedman, Director of Office of Consumer Protection. Remember, I told you about those scams that are going on out there. Our Office of Consumer Protection does an amazing job of making sure that we're aware of those. If you need more information about those, make sure you go on the website. All you have to do is type in Montgomery County Office of Consumer Protection, OCP, and you'll find a wealth of great information. It's there. It's also there are links on my website as well. I know that we have CASA that's here, Mike Conroy from the Montgomery Village Foundation. So I really just want to say thank you for everybody for being here this evening. Let's get started. Let's jump right into the presentation. I don't have anything more to say beyond I look forward to the questions and to the engagement afterwards. I want to turn it over to your new district commander of the 6th District, Commander Michael Ward.
Councilmember Rice, thank you very much. As you mentioned, we've known each other for a number of years and we've worked together considerably. I'd like to start by thanking you and your staff for organizing and hosting tonight's event. On behalf of my partners as other panel members here, every opportunity we have to engage the public we serve is an important opportunity that we do not like to miss. So thank you so much for organizing and hosting tonight's event. My name is Michael Ward. I'm a almost 27-year veteran of the Montgomery County Police Department. I started the Montgomery County Police Academy in January of 1994. Some of my previous assignments include the director of our Special Investigations Division, director of our Criminal Investigations Division. I worked for several years in the chief's office at headquarters. I was a deputy commander of our 5th District in Germantown. As a sergeant, I led a team of investigators who investigated physical and sexual child abuse. I was a patrol sergeant in our 4th District in Wheaton, predominantly working midnight shifts. Prior to that, I was a major crimes detective, district detective. I worked for 5 years in a plainclothes unit, and I started my career off as patrol officer in our 2nd District in Bethesda. So I come with a fairly heavy investigative background, but I also have a background of working closely with communities that we serve. This summer, Chief of Police Marcus Jones summons me to his office and asked me to assume command of the 6th District, middle of the county. And for me, that was a big honor. The responsibility that comes with that is enormous, to say the least. So the 6th District, and I'm going to describe the district shortly, but the 6th District, this first screen that we have up here is our contact information, our location, and different ways to get in touch with us. I'll touch on that in just a second. Leadership in the 6th District has changed over the last couple of years quite a bit. 2 previous district commanders here are now 2 of our assistant chiefs, Assistant Chief Willie Parker Lone and Assistant Chief Dinesh Patel. The last district commander who was here for a short period, Paul LaCourie, retired recently and became a chief of police in another state. And I know these gentlemen well. I've worked with them for decades. We've had a number of turnovers in our lieutenant or deputy district commander positions as well. Lieutenant Nancy Hudson was here for a long time, and she recently retired after more than 3 decades of service. We had a new lieutenant that was promoted last January. Brian Merriman came in, and this past summer, he ran this district by himself as Commander LaCourie and Lieutenant Hudson were ending their careers here. And he did a phenomenal job. In fact, he did such a good job that our chief, Marcus Jones, recently asked him to be his administrative lieutenant. So we're going to be losing Lieutenant Brian Merriman. It's a loss for the 6th District, but it's a gain for the chief, and it'll be a gain for the department, and I'm quite sure a gain for the county. We have a longstanding lieutenant here, Lieutenant Jay Wang, who also serves our country as a member of the Army Reserves. Lieutenant Wang has been on active duty for several months and will be due back with us this winter. He is currently deployed in another part of the country. He's an extremely experienced lieutenant. He's also an attorney, which is also what he does in the military. We have a new lieutenant that was just promoted, an academy classmate of mine, Chris Fumagalli, was recently promoted from sergeant to lieutenant and assigned to the 6th District. Very, very excited to have him working with us. And we have yet another new addition to the 6th District. Replacing Lieutenant Merriman is newly promoted Lieutenant Dan Helton. Dan is coming to us from our Community Engagement Division as a sergeant. and I'm very excited to have him on board. He has contacts throughout the entire county. He has long-standing relationships with lots of different areas of our community, and we're going to be using his expertise to the best of our abilities to improve the relationships here in the 6th District between the police and the community that we serve. So going back to the screen here, our current address is up there. Contact numbers for how to get a hold of us are up there. If you look under my name, you're going to see an email there. It says 6D Commander at montgomerycountymd.gov. We have these special emails set up for each of the commanders in all of our districts so that the community can reach out to us directly. We monitor this. I will say if there's anybody on this call that had emailed over the summer and didn't get a response, I have to apologize. With the change of command over here, when I got here, the emails were backed up a little bit. I'm working my way backwards through them. I do plan on responding to every single one of them. I have been monitoring them as they come in. Under that, you'll have the names of the 3 lieutenants that I mentioned, and the slide was actually submitted before the announcement of Lieutenant Dan Helton's promotion and assignment here. And if we can go to the next slide. So if you look at the map of Montgomery County on the left there, you'll see it's divided into the 6 police districts that serve our county. The 6th District is right square in the middle. It includes areas like Montgomery Village, Gaithersburg City, Deer Park, Rio, Kentlands. It's about 40 square miles. We have a population of over 150,000. It's an urban area. It's a very diverse area. It's a great area, to be honest with you. This is the first time I've been assigned to this district, and working out of the 6th District is exciting for me because of the different aspects that are included in the district. Within the 6th District is the entire city of Gaithersburg, and they are also served by the Gaithersburg City Police Department, led by Chief Mark Schroka. We have a fantastic relationship with Gaithersburg City Police at the police officer level, but also at the executive level. They're an excellent organization. They serve the city well. The way it works in this area is that when their officers are in service, they are dispatched to calls in the city, and when their officers are out of service, their calls will roll over to the county. Our officers work incredibly well together, and typically we run our calls together jointly. Also within the district, we have 3 high schools: Magruder, Gaithersburg, and Watkins Mill. This is a small number of high schools for a district. A lot of the other districts, police districts, have more high schools. There's 26 total in the county. They're served by our school resource officers. We have a long-standing agreement with the Sheriff's Department, and they staff Magruder High School with an SRO. Gaithersburg City handles the high school in the city, Gaithersburg High School, and the county police has an SRO, Stephen O'Malley, who's assigned to Watkins Mill High School. Next slide. So I wanted to include some crime stats. These are last week's numbers, and they've changed slightly between last week and this week, but not substantially. And if you look at these are year-to-date as compared to year-to-date last year. And if we use that metric to compare, currently we are down a little bit in robbery, about even but slightly down in burglary, and about even but slightly down in larceny. We are up in aggravated assaults and auto theft, and fairly significantly. As of last week, we were up year-to-date as compared to last year at this time by 17%, and auto theft is up about 21%. So when we look at crime across the district, that's about where we're standing currently. Some of the aggravated assaults that are on there are domestic related. We have others that are that occur on the street. And auto theft and theft from auto have always in Montgomery County been patterns of crime that seem to be persistent. I'm going to talk a little bit more about theft from autos in just a moment. Can we go to the next slide? Well, now is that moment. So 3 of the topics we came up with tonight to discuss in a community forum are traffic complaints, theft from auto, and gang activity. And I'm going to start with traffic complaints. So Montgomery County is a metro area, 500 square miles, well over 1 million people, quite a few cars on the roadway. In Montgomery County, we respond to 20,000. There are about 20,000 traffic collisions every year in Montgomery County. About half of those are writable, which means we write an accident report for those collisions. Primarily, traffic enforcement in Montgomery County is the responsibility of the county police. Maryland State Police do patrol 270 and the Beltway 495. We also have Maryland Transportation Authority Police that cover the ICC and 200. So I want to talk a little bit about why we enforce traffic. So it boils down to just one thing, and it's our deep desire to protect life and property. I have heard over the course of my career accusations that we write tickets because we somehow benefit from that, and it's not true. In Maryland, police officers who issue tickets to the public, and those tickets carry a fine, that money goes to the state of Maryland. I've heard all kinds of crazy things, but I like that process because it leaves our motivation for issuing citations clean. Our only motivation when we make a traffic stop and issue a citation is our deep desire to protect life, correct behavior and subsequently protect life and property from danger. So during COVID, this has been a rough year for everybody. It's been an exceptionally rough year for my profession. Our motor officers, each of our district stations has what we refer to as a motor squad, and these are officers that enforce traffic. And the department made a decision to place the motor officers in the districts on administrative leave during COVID as a strategic maneuver to protect our workforce in the event that officers on frontline duty, if they were to become infected with COVID and go out of service, we would have a reserve of officers to take their place. As a result, our motor officers were out of service until September 1st, the same time I was assigned to work here. As a result, some of the traffic complaints began backing up while they were off, and they came back to work and found that they had quite a few traffic complaints. I can tell you in the 6th district, the traffic complaints that came in while the officers were off, while the motor officers were off, all of those complainants have been contacted by the motor officers, and they're starting to work their way through those traffic complaints. One of the ways we address traffic safety is through the 3 E's, and some people are familiar with this concept. It's engineering, education, and enforcement. Engineering has to do with us working in partnership with county and state roads to look at the engineering of a road to see if the speed limit is appropriate or the road is designed and constructed safely. Education involves our engagement with the community to educate them on traffic issues and what the law says and why it's important to obey it. And then enforcement obviously involves the correction of behavior so that we have people that comply with those laws and keep everybody else safe. So far this year, there's been 32 fatal accidents or collisions within Montgomery County. 34 people lost their lives. In the 6th district, there has been 6. Of those collisions, 13 countywide fatal collisions involve pedestrians, and it's not just vehicles moving that we are concerned about, but it's also pedestrian safety that we're very concerned about. If you look at any police officer anywhere, unless they're brand new, they've been to a fatal collision and don't want to do that again. So that's our desire. That's what motivates us to enforce traffic law. It all comes down to safety, and that's the only motivation that we have. So I will also point out that traffic enforcement is dangerous for us, law enforcement profession. About 1/3 of officers nationwide killed in the line of duty were involved in traffic enforcement or just driving in general. So for us, it's a risky endeavor, but we believe deeply in protecting our communities, and so we remain engaged in that. A couple other aspects of traffic safety involving complaints that we've been receiving. We've had an issue with what we're referring to as car meetups. And I refer to these, because I'm older, as the Fast and the Furious cars. These tend to be cars that are altered and upgraded, and the owners of these cars like to meet up in different places. Up to that point, we're good. Fortunately, a lot of these meetups are also involving disorderly conduct, negligent driving, reckless driving. And we've been addressing these in Montgomery County. This is also a national trend. I just saw a news story earlier today speaking of these same type of activities in Portland, Indiana. So what happens is these car aficionados organize themselves, usually on social media, and they make a planned location to meet up. And it starts off fairly fine, like a car show. And then on occasion, there's a small percentage of the participants who then engage in dangerous and reckless activity, and that is when law enforcement needs to take an enforcement role. So in the 6th district, the location that most often is used is the commuter park and ride on 124, right next to 270. This is a complex situation because the park and ride is owned by the state. It's in the city of Gaithersburg, and then it's in the county of Montgomery. So what happened was Gaithersburg City was heavily involved in taking the lead with Maryland State Police to put together a task force. And it involved Maryland State Troopers, Gaithersburg City Police, Montgomery County Police, and Maryland Transportation Authority Police. And because the property was owned by the state, they decided that they were going to put up signboards banning anybody from being there unless they were there for normal activity, including parking for commuting. And this seems to be working in the 6th district. And we've seen on social media different posts by participants in these events that indicate that what we are doing in the 6th district is having an effect on stopping activity here. Unfortunately, what we are seeing is that what we are doing is pushing these things. Our 3rd district up in the northeast corner of the county in Burtonsville is another location that is frequently used by these groups. And when we move them out of the 6th district, we're seeing that they end up over there. So the other complaints we're receiving in relation to traffic, we're receiving the normal complaints that we've been receiving for a long time for speeding, which we take seriously, and loud mufflers, which I think is related to car meetups and this current trend of altering these vehicles and changing their performance. We also receive a number of parking complaints. And the traffic officers and the patrol officers in between running calls when they have time have been knocking those down one by one, contacting complainants, and then going out to confirm that the allegation is true and then taking enforcement. We just had a large enforcement effort up in the air park in the commercial district up there, and I believe that we successfully dealt with that. I want to touch base briefly on theft from auto. Historically, one of the biggest trends of crime that impact Montgomery County. And it's one of 2 messages that I will share with you that we have been trying to put out for literally decades. That is to have the members of our public lock their cars and not leave valuables in their cars. The other message that we've been literally putting out for decades is immigration law. But this is a constant message that we've been putting out to the public about locking vehicles, not leaving items in it that could be stolen, not leaving the keys for one car in the other car, and then not locking it. And it seems to be a message that it's a struggle for us to express to the community where we can put an end to this activity. It's been going on for a very long time. For the criminals that participate in this type of activity, it's almost like going to a buffet where they'll just go to a neighborhood and just go down the line of cars and look for the ones that are unlocked and see what's in there that they can take. It used to be just loose change, but these days we find people leaving garage door openers and, as I referenced a minute ago, keys for one car in the other car. And then we have not just a theft from auto, but we also have an actual stolen vehicle. So if there was one thing I could ask the community in reference to this, which I believe is our largest pattern of crime, please, please, please lock your cars. Don't leave anything of value in it. Especially don't leave the keys for one car in the other car. Don't leave the valet key in the car. Don't leave the key fobs in the car. And don't leave your garage door opener in the car. A lot of times where these now turn into burglaries where the criminal will use the garage door opener to open the garage in the middle of the night and then go in and either enter the house through an unlocked door in the garage or steal from the garage itself. So I wanted to then move on briefly to gang activity. It does exist in Montgomery County. We have several different types of gangs in Montgomery County. I'll mention a couple of them briefly. We don't like to give them too much attention. We have transnational gangs in Montgomery County, like MS-13. I think most people are aware of that. We also have hybrid or local gangs that operate in Montgomery County. I'm not going to mention their names. They don't deserve the attention. But we have two that operate in the 6th District. There's another one that operates in the 5th District, and they're currently engaged in altercations back and forth. We've had a number of shootings recently we believe are attributed to these gangs. What I would like to do is talk briefly about how we address them. So in our Special Investigations Division, we have 2 gang units, and they focus their activities on intervention, prevention, and suppression. And this almost runs parallel to what I was saying about traffic, where we use engineering, education, and enforcement. Our gang, the model that we use to address gang activity, as I said, involves intervention, prevention, and suppression. Intervention and a number of these activities, before I describe them, involve collaboration with other groups. So, for example, in intervention, our experts are partnering with Health and Human Services, Positive Youth Development, HHS's Street Outreach Network, also known as STUNS, and they're working to divert people from that specific lifestyle. Prevention, same thing. We're working with our partners. We work with Department of Recreation to provide our opportunities for our young people to engage in positive activities as opposed to negative activities. We work closely with the school system. And part of this includes education. This includes education of stakeholders, other law enforcement officials, other people that we're partnering with, like Montgomery County Schools, HHS. We will present to them on the gangs that are operating in Montgomery County and the types of activities that they are engaged in so that they have a better understanding of what we're dealing with. Suppression, of course, is our enforcement effort. And this is an area that we're also partnering with other people like the State's Attorney's Office, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and other entities that we work with to conduct traditional investigative enforcement efforts. In a nutshell, that's what we have been doing for a number of years to address gang activity within Montgomery County. If we can go to the next slide real quick. I wanted to close up with the importance of community engagement. We have been operating under standard marching orders for a long time that come from the chief down, and those marching orders are that every single police officer in Montgomery County is responsible for community engagement. We are well aware that every contact we have with the public creates an impression, and every one of those contacts is an opportunity for us to build a relationship of trust with the community that we serve, which is extremely important for a number of reasons. So last I heard, we are involved in over 800 activities a year, engagement activities, just the Montgomery County Police Department. I threw up on the screen several pictures of some recent activities. On the left, we had some trick-or-treat activities that occurred. In the middle is a standard coffee with a cop that recently occurred at the Starbucks on Muddy Branch Road. And in the bottom right, I got cut off a little bit, but that is our district community action team leading an activity called Parking Lot Bingo. I understand that everybody had a good time. And in our district, we engage, while it's the mission of every officer to take part in community engagement, we have specialists as well. Earlier, I referenced that Lieutenant Dan Helton was coming from our Community Engagement Division. That's a division within the police department. The sole function is to facilitate engagement between our department and the community. So Dan comes with a wealth of experience there. Each district also has a Community Services Officer, or a CSO, Ours is Kim Jones, and she's fantastic. She's been working in this capacity for a number of years. Lovely woman, excellent police officer, and I have to admit that I feel extremely lucky that we have her. We also have two specialized patrol shifts in the 6th District. One of them is the Montgomery Village team under the leadership of Sergeant Carlo Cavassier, and the other is the District Community Action Team, or CAT, supervision of Sergeant Rob Sheehan. Both of these teams are, we call them specialized. They don't respond, they don't get dispatched to calls. We use them to target quality of life issues. We heavily use them to engage in community engagement. We also use them to target quality of life issues or problems that may pop up within the district. The Montgomery Village team does focus on Montgomery Village, and the District Community Action Team does spend time there, but they also are responsible for the rest of the district as well. And they're interesting because they're half and half. They both of these teams engage in the community, but they also are involved in enforcement activities as well. So with that, I'd like to allow the other panelists their time to speak and thank everybody for being here tonight.
Well, thank you very much, Commander Ward. And I know that we're running a little bit tight, so I'm going to turn right to Chief Goldstein. I did just want to acknowledge that we do have Judith Daca, school board member representing the area. So thank you very much, Judy, for being on the call. Really appreciate you being here. And also wanted to remind folks that, again, you can also text questions to 240-686-5334. Again, that's 240-686-5334. So you can send questions there. I'm looking at some of the Q&A questions that are coming in. They're great. I've seen some of the ones on Facebook as well. I promise you we will get to them. Let's just get through the presentations. And then, so I've seen them. Trust me, I've seen the questions. They're coming in well. And so let me turn to Chief Goldstein to talk about fire and rescue.
Good deal. Thank you, Mr. Rice, and thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. And we just rolled out of October. October is Fire Prevention Month. The clocks were changed. We rolled back as we went from daylight to standard time. We used to talk about change your clock, change your battery. No longer should you be changing the battery on your smoke alarm. Your smoke alarm must be equipped with a 10-year battery. That battery is good for the entire life of the smoke alarm. Think about that. You're a fifth grader, you have somebody who's older than a fifth grader, that smoke alarm needs to be younger than they are. Anything that's in excess of 2010, that smoke alarm loses its efficiency over time and does not become your silent partner and helps you through the process of early detection. So smoke alarms. A lot of confusion about smoke alarms as it relates to where they should be. There's a lot of variability in the construction age of your house, townhouse or residence, and where those are required to be. So go to mcfrs.org and MCSafe, look at that reference. Critical answer, near the sleeping area, inside the sleeping area, and one on every level of the house. But there's a lot of specific requirements. The other point of confusion that people in the last couple of years, when the 10-year alarms came out, were that they were taking out their hardwired AC powered alarm and replacing it solely with a battery alarm. No, absolutely not. That battery is the backup. Those AC or hardwired alarms are interconnected. So when one in the basement goes off, the one outside or inside the bedroom sounds, giving you early warning, wider warning throughout the house. So make sure your smoke alarms are less than 10 years old. When you change your clock, give it a little TLC. Vacuum it, cobwebs, dust, all kinds of life accumulations, and press that test button at least once a month for the smoke alarm. I'm going to roll forward to the next one. Now we talk about smoke alarms, carbon monoxide. Mr. Rice is going to make sure I hit all these points the best, as he was the champion of this law that went into effect in July of 2019. Carbon monoxide is known as the silent killer because you can't smell it. You have no sensory ability to detect it, not like smoke. Where does carbon monoxide come from? The best answer is from a blue or orange flame. Maybe it's your gas fireplace, maybe it's your oven or a hot water heater or a dryer or a furnace, but anything that uses a blue or orange flame, that may be with wood or natural gas or propane, but it's got a nice flame. Also understand that carbon monoxide is a byproduct of the internal combustion engine. Tragically, it is not surprising that we find cars left running in garage spaces. That accumulation of carbon monoxide migrates into the house. So starting July 1st, 2019, all residential structures that were built prior to 2008 have to have a carbon monoxide alarm. If you have the production, or excuse me, if you're using a fossil fuel, gas, wood, propane, or you have a garage attached parking space, absolutely best. The other factor of where to put the carbon monoxide alarm, you need to have one on every level. And again, most critical, outside of your sleeping area. That is where you're most vulnerable. You're asleep at night. That's why it's referred to as the silent killer, because you go to sleep at night, you become overwhelmed by the effects of the carbon monoxide, and then in turn get found days later by others because you were succumbed to the carbon monoxide poisoning at night. Carbon monoxide, make sure you have. If you have an all-electric apartment or townhouse, good idea to have one, but not required. Rolling on to what is our major cause of house fires. Kirsten, next slide, if you would. Thank you. So we're in the wintertime. I understand it was just 75 degrees yesterday, and it wasn't likely that we were talking about space heaters. But it will be in the 30 degrees here in the next couple of days, and we'll be talking about space heaters and space heaters that need space. Space heaters are alternative heating sources and how they are the number two cause for home house fires. And as this slide talks about, they are almost accounting for 85% of the home heating fire deaths. Space heaters need space. You need to make sure that that is at least 3 feet away from anything combustible. The couch, the chairs, the drapes, the bedding. Big issue there, the bedding. Keep that space heater away from the bedding so that you do not have the comforter, the blanket, or something rub up against it and become ignited by the heat and the radiant heat off that space heater. So space heaters, very important. The next two slides, which will be available through the packet through the council member's website, talk about other key factors, other key things to think at home. The one there in the middle, don't overload your home. We have been concerned and seen an uptick in electrical extension cord fires. We're now at home, as we all are right now. We're using our laptops. We're using the table. We're making up these improvised office places, plugging in a lot of peripherals, extension cords into power strips. We're running that underneath the carpet. All of those are no-nos. Use the right power strip or extension cord for the right purpose. Make sure it's the right size. Always aim for it to have a underwriter's laboratory or being rated by UL for safe for use. But don't overload your electrical circuits. Don't run that extension cord underneath the rug. As we talked about space heaters, cool your ashes. We will have a fire this winter that's from fireplace ashes. If you have a fire in your fireplace, you clean out those ashes. After they feel cool, you make sure they're into a metal container and placed far outside of your house. No plastic bags, no paper bags. Don't put them inside the garage or next to the carport. Whatever container, ideally metal, that you put it in, take it 5 to 10 feet away from anything in the yard that's combustible, because very, very often a little bit of agitation, that ash gets a little bit of air exposure, and that bag or box or the cardboard trash can and cardboard container ignites, catches the house on fire, and sadly we have a resident who is displaced from the fire. And then the last slide talks about our holiday candles as well. As we're getting into the time of year where we're going to see our holiday celebrations, a burning candle is a great item to reflect and bring memories to our house. Think about electric candles. Think about the flameless candles. Anything that gives you that open flame needs to be attended. If it's for your holiday activities, if it's for a power outage situation, you can never leave the candle lit unattended and have a concern. Now, there's a lot of other information that we rolled through greatly. We are very much engaged in the Montgomery Village area with Fire Station 8. It is the busiest fire station for Montgomery County that runs a little over 10,000 emergency responses a year from its Russell Avenue and Lake Forest Mall, Montgomery Village Avenue location. So if you have information, mcfrs.org and MCSafe. And I'll welcome your questions as we get through the rest of our great presenters. Thank you, Mr. Rice.
Well, thank you very much, Chief Goldstein. Unfortunately, it's so much information, it's really hard to try and condense it in a short period. But I did want to remind folks, they can go on to my website. If you just type in Montgomery County Councilmember Craig Rice into Google, the website's there. We'll have the presentation up, so you'll be able to access that. We'll be pushing it out on social media as well, so you have access to all of the information that came in this presentation this evening. Let me quickly turn to Sheriff Darren Popkin.
Thank you, Councilmember Rice, for the introduction, and as always, for your leadership. I want to say good evening to everyone tuning into the town hall. My name is Darren Popkin, and I am the sheriff here in Montgomery County. As with all of the public safety agencies represented on this call, the sheriff's office has been fully functioning throughout the pandemic. I want to, for tonight's purposes, with the limited period of time, I want to focus on two areas that the sheriff's office that have great community interest for this evening. The first one is the Family Justice Center, which is the slide that is currently up on your screen at the moment. So the Family Justice Center, for those of you who don't know, is the domestic violence center in Montgomery County. It is run by the sheriff's office with great partners from the police department, from the state's attorney's office, as well as a number of private nonprofits. It's located in downtown Rockville, adjacent to the courts. And as I have said, it remained fully open throughout the public health crisis and continues to remain fully open. We noticed at the beginning of, back in March, at the beginning of the pandemic when it first hit, that on any given year, there's about 5,000, a little over 5,000 domestic-related 911 calls in any given year. And those calls were just not coming in to what they were. We knew that people were together and staying home because people were not going out. We were seeing a significant decrease in the number of clients in April and May. So we felt as if something absolutely had to be done, because we knew that what we were seeing of the calls that were coming in were the cases were way more severe, and the danger level had increased really significantly in just the first few months that COVID kind of existed. So what we were able to do is set up some resource information on the FJC website, Family Justice Center website. There is often for those people who were at home and their spouses were at home, and unfortunately there was some family violence, it was very, very difficult for someone to get away and call 911 or to get away and actually come to the Family Justice Center and report some of this potential problems. So we were able to, on an ad campaign, create a safe at Montgomery County MD.gov website, an email address for those for emergency purposes. We ended up collaborating with the police department, state's attorney's office, and County Executive Elrich's office to provide information for what to do while you were in a COVID-19 lockdown, but you were not safe. And that was really our concern. Once this was actually done after the first 3 months, when there was some information really that needed to be out there, what to do during a pandemic, because obviously this has never occurred before, the numbers started coming back up to what are the average number of people that would normally come to Montgomery County's Family Justice Center, the Domestic Violence Center. So the information that was put out, the number of people who are now coming it's kind of a double-edged sword, because we are seeing an increase in the number of people that are coming that need assistance and need help, and we get them out of their unsafe environments. But then again, there is such a need for this that the people are there and available for that sort of information. One of the real difficult parts of it were every year we send children to camp. These are children who witness domestic violence and really need a break from some difficult living environments. And unfortunately, during this particular year, we were not able to send them to camp, but we were able to put together a virtual camp that lasted throughout the entire summer that got children out of that environment and were able to, have some, hopefully a little bit better resources and a little bit better home life with that. So my takeaway on the Family Justice Center in the brief period I have is that there is no need for someone who is facing a family violence. Please reach out to the Family Justice Center. Please call 911 if you're in danger, and don't wait, because if you're not safe at home, we want to make sure that you are. The other thing, Councilmember Rice, that I would like to just touch on tonight is the evictions. The Sheriff's Office is responsible for the evictions in Montgomery County. It is something that is statutory duty that the Sheriff does have. But as you know, during this pandemic, I worked very closely with the courts, and there was a moratorium on evictions. There are so many people out of work, and it is very difficult for people right now to make their rent payments, and we completely understand that. And that's why between the governor's moratorium, the court's moratorium, and the CDC's moratorium on evictions, there are very few evictions that are actually taking place right now. Almost all of the evictions that are currently occurring were pre-COVID evictions that all got canceled due to COVID. So there was 175 evictions that got canceled at the time of when the governor put his moratorium in during the beginning of COVID. And so unfortunately, the moratoriums have ended other than the federal moratorium. But there are so many areas in Montgomery County. The county council has been leading the way with money available for people that are facing really terrible situations. The courts are also looking at any filings that come in asking for assistance, as well as the CDC moratorium that would go directly from the tenant to the landlord. So, and Health and Human Services, as Councilmember Rice would tell you, has been in the forefront of working with the Sheriff's Office on these matters, and we are absolutely trying to limit any sort of exposure anybody has at this particular time. And the federal moratorium would end at the end of the year. So please don't, if you're in a position and you believe that this eviction is a possibility, please don't wait. reach out to the social service agencies that are working hard with this, reach out to the courts, look at the CDC website right now. There's a big explanation on it as well. Just don't wait for the last minute as we move forward toward the end of this year. And Councilmember Rice, I'll leave it at that, and I'm certainly here for any questions as we move forward. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Sheriff Hopkins. The questions keep rolling in. So, folks, I'm taking great notes and grouping all of these questions together. So we have questions for all of our participants. Let me turn very quickly to Mr. McCarthy, who's our state's attorney, but first wanted to acknowledge we've also got Dave Humpton from Montgomery Village Foundation. Good to see you, Dave. Thanks so much for being here. And then one of our other colleagues on the Montgomery County Council, Councilmember Will Jawando, has also joined us. So Councilmember Jawando, thank you so much for being here as well. Let me turn to Mr. McCarthy, and then right after Mr. McCarthy goes, then we'll jump into answering some of these great questions that have been coming in.
Craig, I want to thank you and Kristen for putting this thing together. It really was a flawless thing, and you kept us right on task throughout the entire program. Look, you and I have been friends for a long time, and we've worked on a lot of issues. I want to thank you for your strong voice in the area of public safety in general, and particularly in the area of truancy prevention in the community, which I know you care a lot about. And the truancy prevention program for Montgomery County Schools is run through the state's attorney's office. And also your very strong support for the mental health courts, which we've established in both the district and circuit courts. And I think everybody recognizes how profound the intersection is between individuals who have mental health challenges and are looking at how we're going to reimagine how we're going to police in our community. I'm honored to be here with Scott, Darren, and Mike. I'm also, let me tell you, every other person almost that's been introduced is a partner in many ways for us when we are talking about public safety in this community. Eric Friedman, who is with Consumer Protection, Eric and I go out, along with Sid Katz, we are out all the time talking to seniors in the community how to prevent themselves from being victims of fraud. It's great to be with those two great allies on that issue. Sid also is a leading individual on the mental health issue. Judy Daca was my partner when we started the truancy prevention program. I think the very second school that we started at or went to was a school where Dr. Daca used to be the principal down there in Silver Spring, and she was there when we started it and still comes to our graduations. Gabe Albernas from the county council, Scott was talking, I think Mike Ward was talking about community engagement. You know, the way I got involved with Gabe and what our office did was that idea of getting kids actively engaged in positive activities after school. I think Gabe was a real leader on that with when he was head of the Department of Recreation. Having said that, what's the biggest thing that's impacted criminal justice? I'm going to go through a couple things very quickly. COVID. How has it impacted us? Well, initially, it impacted us for a couple of months in a good way. Calls for service were down for about 50%, and arrests were down 50%. When Captain Ward tells me that some of the numbers for the year over year are up in the village, I find that alarming because they really fell for about 2 or 3 months drastically. So the fact that in any category we would exceed last year's numbers is somewhat surprising and a little bit more alarming than you would think. I would say that my friend, the great sheriff from Montgomery County, Darren Poppen, was talking to you about the Family Justice Center. After the press conference that we all participated in, there was an uptick in calls for service for domestic violence of 100% overnight. 100%. Were there people in this community that were isolated, that didn't know we were still open for business? We were sending out messages on pizza boxes with merchants. There were a lot of good people who came together with the elected officials in this community to get the word out. We're open for business. We're here to protect you. I remain concerned about a population that I think we are not learning about. How do we learn about abuse against children in our community? Typically from teachers and counselors. I will tell you our numbers of complaints for child abuse are down. I don't think child abuse is down. I think it's hidden from us. I think that maybe the charge to anybody listening to this is we really have to be vigilant looking in our community to the children in our community who are much more isolated than they typically are. And the typical reporters, we don't have access to them right now. And children don't see their teachers who are who we see. What was another challenge for us here in Montgomery County? And it's a challenge for everybody. Fitting the population in the jail. Look, I will tell you, the population in Montgomery County Jail during the time that I've been state's attorney through a lot of different, is down 35%. It's down 35%. But I will tell you, we are at the lowest levels that I can even think of. We're down around 550 people in our 3 jail facilities, which is about 300 or 400 below the typical numbers that occurred about a decade ago in our community. We were very interested in making sure that we're protected, not only the men and women that worked in the institution, but the people who were incarcerated for crimes they committed, but we had to make sure they were safe. And there were a lot of progressive things that were done to get the people out of jail that did not need to be there. I also will tell you, we're back. The courts are operating. We never closed down. We were consistently and always doing bond reviews. We were reviewing the statuses of individuals who were in jail on a daily basis. Some days when COVID first hit, I was receiving 50 bond reviews a day from attorneys in the community asking us to release their prisoners. And we had to look at that. And we tried to intelligently decide, balancing public safety and consideration for individuals who might be exposed in a jail setting to COVID when they should be released. They've done an extraordinary job in our jail. The numbers get published every week to me, and very typically for the last 3 months, we've essentially not had any COVID in the jail. And there's a woman named Angela Talley that runs the jail. She deserves a lot of credit. We are grand jury. We are up to speed with our grand jury. We have no backlog. Our district courts, that means we've been doing trials in the district court on minor misdemeanor matters for about 2 months. As Darren knows, because he's in charge of the security in the courthouse, we are now back doing jury trials. We have had more jury trials in Montgomery County in the last 2 weeks than any jurisdiction in the state. And we are doing that because of the coordination of Judge Greenberg, the cooperation of the sheriff, but we are doing the people's business and giving people the opportunity to be tried for cases where they were sitting waiting for that. I want to follow the lead of Captain Ward, and I'm not going to praise the gangs that are in your community, but I will tell you, I think the character of gang-related activity is not consistent throughout your entire police district. I think Mike talked about hybrid gangs. I think the hybrid gangs, which are local kids without international ties, are mainly in the village. Do I think in Gaithersburg City and maybe closer down by the mall, there may be a more international flavor with international gangs that are active in our county? The answer is yes. We do have gang-related activity. The character of the gang-related activity is different from time to time. I just want to say, and I know that Craig wants to get to the questions that you have. We continue, besides the courts running, we never, ever stopped running our drug diversionary program. Our drug court ran always through COVID. We never stopped running our mental health court. It ran all the way through COVID. There's national statistics that were generated by the Obama study that was done in 2015 that say 50% of police contacts in the United States, the person on the other side of the contact has a mental health issue in play. We have to deal more intelligently with the issue of mental health if we are going to make any progress in the area of police reform and criminal justice reform. I will tell you that in terms of community engagement, we are continuing to present Choose Respect conference. We've got almost 500 conferences on Choose Respect. We have 60,000 kids have attended our lectures on Speak Up, Save a Life, which has to do with moving kids away from opiates and drugs. And I did a senior presentation. I live in your district, by the way. I am a resident of 6D. I've been here for 6 years. I was at Asbury last week, and tomorrow I'm going to be at Oasis speaking to a group of about 100 people there. I'm honored to be here. I know there's tons of great questions out there. Craig, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here with a wonderful group of people. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. McCarthy, and thank you to all the panelists. Again, a reminder, please, if you do have questions, I've already seen tons that have come in online. I've got a huge list that I've already grouped, so hopefully I'll be able to make it easy for our panelists. 240-686-5334. Again, 240-686-5334 is the number for you to text in your questions. You can also put them on Facebook Live. I have staff that's monitoring that, as well as we're monitoring the Q&A right here on Zoom. So let me get to the first one. This is for you, Commander Ward. This is regarding school resource officers. And the question is that a person had attended Councilmember Jawando's forum and had talked about replacing school resource officers and the need for additional funds. What they were recommending, and this is something specifically that I'm not familiar with, but that they were saying that maybe if we could change the policy of using LMR and converting to FirstNet, that might be a cost savings for the police department. Can you address that? Again, I'm not sure what that is, but I'm sure that you do, Commander.
Actually, unfortunately, I don't. I saw that question in pending. I know FirstNet has to do with communications, possibly. There is a FirstNet that does that. I would like the person who posed that question to reach out to me directly by calling me at the station or emailing me at the email that was on the front page of the presentation. Not quite clear what the content of that question involves.
Okay.
We do.
Well, that's fine. We do
believe
strongly that one and come back to it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yep. And then just to be very clear, because there was a question about school resource officers in general, so let me just address some of that very quickly. We have one school resource officer assigned to each high school right now. There is proposed legislation that may eliminate the school resource officer program. The council had actually come up with that discussion earlier in the year during budget. We decided to wait until the school board had made a decision. I know that Dr. Daka is on the line, but I know they are currently in deliberations around that decision right now. And the council said that we would take guidance from Montgomery County Public Schools as to how we would move forward. Let me just address one point of that deals with cost savings, Commander Ward, that you can address, which is there is kind of the assumption that if we got rid of school resource officers, that we could actually put that money towards mental health, towards counselors, towards other kinds of things in our county budget. I know you aren't a member of the council and can't decide on where we appropriate funds, but talk a little bit about the officers. Those officers are actually sworn officers in Montgomery County Police Department. They wouldn't just go away. They'd still be on our payroll. Is that not correct?
It is correct. And you're right. There are 26 public high schools. There are one SRO in each school. We believe very deeply in this program for a number of reasons. And I want to point out a couple facts that sometimes get missed in the conversation. First of all, our school resource officers are highly trained professionals. When you look at any law enforcement officer, already you're looking at a highly trained professional who needs certain personality traits to be able to successfully perform the job and accomplish the mission. Our SROs have that and more. These are extremely patient and caring people that enjoy working with the students in our school, and they have very strong relationships with the school system in the school. I'd also like to point out in Montgomery County, we're the most diverse country in the world, the United States is. And when you look at a jurisdiction like Montgomery County, we are very diverse here. And our SROs, the police department as a whole, reflects the community that we serve. The SROs, by happenstance in Montgomery County, actually are probably more diverse than the very diverse community that we serve. I don't know the exact numbers, but the majority of them are minorities. Half of them happen to be female. And they represent a very diverse background, which is important for a lot of reasons. And they're in these schools working with these students. We have a very strong MOU with the school system, and it delineates when we do and don't make arrests. We don't enforce minor infractions at the schools. We don't enforce violations of school rules. And unless there's a danger to the public that's imminent, we don't even make arrests without consulting with the schools themselves. So the bottom line is the arrests that are made in schools by the SROs are very few and far between, and they are very serious offenses where we basically have no choice but to make an arrest and introduce an offender into the criminal justice system for the safety of everybody, and hopefully to divert that offender back into a path of normality. But it's all done in close work with the school system by a group of highly trained professionals.
Excellent. Thank you very much. My next question is for Chief Goldstein. Chief Goldstein, the question is, how do I change my hardwired smoke alarms? Which of those smoke and CO alarms are good ones? And is there a way to get free ones, including possible partnerships with the Red Cross?
You combined a couple of questions there that I was working on typing responses to, so well done, sir. The best response there is go to 311, request MCFRS to come out and do a home safety check. So again, because of the complexity of the age of the structure and the requirements, it's very limiting for me to give anybody a fixed answer here. You go to any of your big box stores, CVS, or even your grocery stores, you can see smoke alarms, and they're available there in the $15 to $20 range. Some of them are even combined, carbon monoxide and smokes. So ask for us to come out. We're doing those virtually as well during the pandemic. We can do that through this same medium, and let us come out. The questions of hardwire. A hardwire alarm needs to be replaced with the same model and manufacturer of alarm. The connectors on the back are unique to a manufacturer, so brand A and brand B. So if you know what brand it is, you can purchase the new brand. Our core recommendation, have a licensed electrician manage that, because he or she is going to be aware of that. Go to the right provider to get brand A alarm, get up on the ladder, unclip the old ones, clip in the new ones, and be back into sync altogether. So use an electrician for hardwire, go to 311 or our website and request a home safety check. We'll come out virtually or in person as need be and give you some recommendations on those alarms. The last point was the free ones. Absolutely. We have a great partnership with the utilities, Pepco as our key provider in smoke alarms. So if there's an event in a community that you're set up in the village and you want us to come out and be able to provide community education and fire safety information, reach out to us. And we do provide free smoke alarms to those in need. We always do that every call, every house, making sure that there's a smoke alarm presence, if it's for a medical call or for a water leak or for a fire. Thank you, Mr. Rice.
Thank you very much, Chief Goldstein. And I can tell you, I've actually seen it. I was actually on a fire ride-along with Kingsview Station in Germantown, and we actually went to a call where a woman could not reach her smoke detector that was going off. It was a very high ceiling. She was an elderly lady, and the fire department responded. Went there, checked to make sure that there was nothing wrong, obviously, that there wasn't a fire, but then replaced that smoke alarm for the woman. Again, service. That really is what it's about. And so I've seen it firsthand. You guys do an amazing job. So thank you very much for that. Let me turn to Facebook Live. We've got a question. It says, how can we expect our police to be serious about all kinds of issues concerning our community when they are not following mask guidelines? And so, Commander Ward, talk a little bit about what the guidelines are for our officers in the community and their requirement for wearing masks.
So within county buildings and in places where the public is required to wear a mask, we do. Frequently when we're outside, you'll see the officers possibly not wearing a mask. They are encouraged when they are interacting with the public, even if they're outside, to put the mask on at the very least as a courtesy to the public. I'd like to know a little more about the question to properly answer it, including where are the officers being seen when they're not wearing masks. They shouldn't be in any buildings without a mask, and they're being encouraged to wear their masks even when they're outside, and properly socially distanced when dealing with the public when they can.
So thank you very much for that answer. And that to me, I hope for the folks that are watching at home, that's why we give you contact information. So if you see something that you feel isn't right, just as when it comes to, again, for us seeing something and saying something about things that we think are criminal and want to report it, if you see something to where someone isn't doing what you think they're supposed to be doing, just please call. That's why the commander has given his number and his information, so you can reach out and make sure that we all get better. Sometimes, unfortunately, we need to be reminded, all of us, right? And so it's important for us to make sure that we're doing that to keep us on task. All right, so let me go to another one for you, Commander Ward. We've seen increased traffic throughout the village that is incredibly concerning. What can we do about lowering speed limits or have more traffic enforcement? You kind of touched on this during your presentation. It's one of the things that I've heard all across the county that we're being challenged with to make sure that people remain safe.
So on the county website, the county police, website, there's a number of good resources there, and I think I'm going to be able to answer a couple questions at once here. On our website, under publications or reports, we do have our annual crime report, which talks about crime statistics in the different parts of the county. If there's any questions about how the 6th District or Montgomery Village compares to other parts of the county, the answer can be found there. We also have reports on our annual use of force report is there, pursuit report, and a couple other reports as well that may answer some of the questions pending. There's also information on there on how to request automated traffic enforcement in any particular location in the county. That's also on our website. That would be one way to request that type of a solution to the issue. In terms of changing speed limits, the police, we don't control that. It's depending if it's a county or a state road, and then the engineers that work for these entities are the ones who establish the speed limits. I think requests can be made through the county to take a look at speeds and possibly for them.
So thank you very much for that. And let me just remind folks that, again, if you see things that are happening in the community where you see an increase in speeding, please reach out to our office to let us know. You also heard from Delegate Acevedo, who's on the call, because with state roads, that's certainly something that they can do as well. You need to just let us know when you're seeing these kinds of things. We're certainly taking notes this evening and want to know more about where specifically you're seeing this. So reach out to us and let us know. You can always just report these things to 311 and let them know as well, so that we can start building. Okay, there are a lot of questions and concerns about this particular area. It gives us the ability to reach out to Captain Didone, who's with our Traffic Enforcement Division of the Police Department, to go out and start looking at whether or not we need to do some more traffic enforcement or actually change the speed limit. So all of those things are within the process that can be done. Another one for you, Commander Ward. The community of Montgomery Village is incredibly diverse. However, we've often seen that workforces, including the police department, do not always reflect that diversity. What is the diversity of the 6th District Police Department, if you do have that? And then what are you doing to increase that diversity to make sure that our police department reflects more of what our community looks like?
This has been an issue in my profession for literally decades, and I think the person that posed the question hit the nail on the head. It's incredibly important for police departments to represent the communities they serve for many, many reasons, including perception of the community that the police that serve them represent them equally, and that leads into issues of trust by the community and so forth. So our recruitment efforts, usually the issue is addressed in the area of recruitment, hiring, and retention. There was actually a very good federal paper written by a panel through the DOJ. If you just Google diversity in policing, you should find it. It talks about those three areas that I just mentioned. So in our personnel division, the director there does an excellent job of recruiting for all different aspects of our community. And work to hire the right people. Last police chief, Chief Manger, talked frequently about the fact that three of the most important things that were his responsibility as chief were to hire the right people, provide them with the proper training, and then hold them accountable. The first part of that addressed. I don't have specific statistics on the officers in the 6th district to share with you. I can tell you that we are a very diverse department. I think if we don't meet the same numbers that the county does, I think we're close in many areas. We always have room for improvement. We're very aware of that, and we're constantly working on it.
So I'm going to turn to Sheriff Popkin because I think that the Sheriff's Office also, as another branch of law enforcement, folks would certainly like to know about that. And Commander Ward, what I'd like to do is ask if we could follow up and actually get that information, and then we can post that on our website. But Sheriff Popkin, let me turn to you.
The question specific to
diversity for the Sheriff's Department, and then what are you doing specifically to help make the Sheriff's Department more diverse?
Yeah, Craig, it is certainly something that we work very hard at. The numbers are not where we would like it to be perfectly mirror the community. But my numbers at the Sheriff's Office are actually very good. I can provide those numbers to you specifically. And that includes racial breakdown across all ethnicities and races, as well as female, male. I'm actually doing very, very well with that. I don't want to misquote specifically, but I will provide all those to you. And we are certainly, that is something that is a standard that is way before any of this social justice stuff really occurred recently, that we've been trying to maintain for years and years and years. But I'll provide that for you. There's no problem whatsoever.
Excellent. And let me just say this, that I know that with our police department specifically and its partnership with Montgomery College, when it comes to how to continue to grow the diversity of the workforce within the police department is something that was a priority of Chief Manger. I know that Chief Jones is actively continuing and supporting that program. I know that we've seen not only us grow the diversity in terms of people of color, but also when it comes to women. And we've seen great success through that program. And so hopefully we can continue to promote those kinds of opportunities. And when we're, of course, marketing in the community, I think the community engagement piece will be a big part of that as well. And that actually dovetails into one of the other questions that came on here. And I'll throw this up for both our police and sheriff. With the perception of police, and specifically with people of color, what are you doing to ensure that when it comes to dealing with a community that is primarily a community of color, you can establish a better working relationship, understanding that what they're seeing on TV and sometimes what they're experiencing in their communities is not always a positive one?
This speaks directly to our community engagement effort. It's entirely what they are geared for, to develop these trusting relationships with the community we serve. I'm a third generation police officer. I'll share with you that my grandfather and uncle were New York City detectives. My father was a police officer for 30 years in Hartford, Connecticut. My wife's a retired detective. This is the environment I was created and born into, and I understand what my profession means. Having said that, I will share that law enforcement is probably the most misunderstood profession out there, because of influences like TV and movies and a lack of engagement between regular citizens and police. There's large misunderstandings of what my profession is actually about. I think there's a failure for us to communicate who we are, what we do, and most importantly, why we do it. I can tell you behind every man and woman who enters this profession is a person that is deeply committed to risking their lives to help other people. And you don't hear that too often, and I can't quite place my finger on why. But we're working every single day to educate our public on who we are, what we actually do, and most importantly, I think why we do it. We have activities like our Citizens Academy, which I would encourage anyone to check out and to partake in. Really quickly, I want to share a quick story about something incredible that the Gaithersburg City Police Department have done under Chief Schroka. Over the summer, there was a number of protests calling for police reform, and a number of them that occurred in the 6th District and in Gaithersburg City. When we could, we would reach out to the organizers and collaborate with them, but also try to work with them. Gaithersburg City reached out to the organizers a number of these events that occurred in Gaithersburg City, and they've been working with them now for a couple of months. They've been engaging with them. They've actually brought them to the Montgomery County Police Training Academy and ran them through scenarios. So those are the types of things we like to do, and I know we're short on time. I would love to continue this conversation at any time, to be honest with you.
Well, thank you very much for that. I'm going to try and combine three together. Montgomery Village stats for crime versus other parts of the county. How are they? As well as because of the growth that we're seeing in Montgomery Village, do we have enough officers to actually manage the continued growth, both commercial and residential? And what about the Montgomery Village team? Is that going to continue?
We'll try to go through these quickly. Most of our stats, like I mentioned, are included on our website. We also have Data Montgomery that captures a lot of the stats that are available online. Also, you can shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to engage with anybody on a one-by-one basis. Do we have enough police officers? No. I don't. However, I will preface that by saying I don't think we could go anywhere in our country and find any law enforcement professional that would admit they have enough people. That's just a constant state that we are always in. I will share with you 27 years ago, the population of Montgomery County was 750,000. When I graduated the police academy, we had 1,050 police officers. Our population is significantly higher today, and we have 1,300. We only have 250 more than we did 27 years ago. We are short on the street. I think that the public would be shocked if they knew the numbers of officers on the street at any given time. In my opinion, it's nowhere near as many as we should have. We make do with that. We are constantly looking to be more efficient and to perform our profession in a more streamlined manner. But we could always use more police officers, the right people trained properly and then held accountable. The last part of that question, Mr. Rice?
The last part dealt with, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. What's the Montgomery Village team? Yes.
Yes. Well, I certainly hope we're going to keep them. They are a huge asset to the district and the community we serve. They are extremely dedicated professionals. The sergeant that leads them is an outstanding sergeant. I would hope that we get to keep them because they're doing great work.
Excellent. I want to turn to fire because there was a great question asked about whether or not our fire department is trained to look for signs of abuse, whether it's child abuse, elder abuse, all kinds of things, whether they're trained to identify those when they're responding to a call.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Rice, for the question and for the member watching the forum for that question. Yes, as part of our reoccurring protocol and update continuing education process, we do have sessions for elder abuse indicators, and Mr. McCarthy and the sheriff outlines, and Diane, how we are a part of the elder abuse task force and working together in helping those that we see that may be in such circumstances. Additionally, through the child abuse, same point. As our members do their research and their protocol updates, information and training is provided on those key signs, indications, traits, and ways to refer to child protective services or adult protective services.
Thank you very much for that, Chief. That was great. So let me ask one more question very quickly that Commander, you should be able to answer. Mini motorcycles. What's the deal with those? Are they legal? Are they allowed to run on sidewalks? What are we doing about enforcement when it comes to those?
Complex question. My background is obviously, as I mentioned earlier, investigative, but I'm going to take a little bit of a crack at this and then refer anybody to me back again, and I'll confer with our experts on this. Right now, it seems like it depends on the CCs of the size, which indicates the size of the engine. Also depends on whether the vehicle is titled through the MVA or registered through the MVA. If they're registered and they have a registration plate, they're legal. But not for paths and grassy areas, only used on public roadways. Non-electric motorcycles are illegal off-road on county property or property open to the public. Private property only with written permission, on roads only if registered. A lot of intricacies there. Our traffic division are the experts on this. The motor officers that work for me, the experts on this. Anybody with a more specific question or whose question I didn't answer, reference that, please contact me. And I will either get the answer or refer you to the experts.
So I'm going to go to two last questions because we're at 8:32. The first one, I'm actually going to go off script a little bit and send this one to both Sheriff Popkin and to State's Attorney McCarthy. You talked about the uptick in domestic violence. For people who are experiencing domestic violence, understanding that COVID has put folks in direct contact with their abuser for a much more prolonged period of time, which unfortunately in some cases results in death of that individual. What can people do if they need help? Sheriff, I'll turn to you, and then State's Attorney McCarthy.
Councilmember Rice, first of all, if anybody is in fear for whatever reason, and it is that sort of situation where they are in fear for their life, they need to call 911 immediately. If it's a situation where it's ongoing family violence, ongoing family abuse, the courts are open 24 hours a day with the commissioner to receive any sort of protective order, restraining order. The Family Justice Center is open Monday through Friday during daytime hours, and then the Crisis Center is open during the other hours. John McCarthy has full-time staff that are there at the Family Justice Center that can answer any sort of legal questions associated with if there's any sort of crime. I've got victim assistants, client assistants that are there. We have therapists on staff. We have everything that potentially someone may need to get themselves some help, because living in that sort of violence and living in fear is just something that will end up with someone getting hurt.
Yeah, the sad part of it, Craig, is that isolation and control are within the cycle of domestic violence are very common. And when you have the isolation that comes with a COVID kind of crisis and people don't have access, it's a perfect formula when you throw in the tension, financial pressures, and everything else that comes with this pandemic. It's a perfect formula for domestic violence. And even when our numbers were down in terms of crimes, the one exception was in the area of domestic violence, which continued to outpace even last year's number, even when everything else was 50% of last year's number.
Well, thank you very much. And just again, for anyone who is experiencing domestic violence, please reach out to one of our great institutions, whether it's the Family Justice Center or the Crisis Center. And of course, if you fear for your life, please do call 911. Just a very quick, since this is our last one, on both Facebook Live as well as on here, La Villa had a shooting October 19th. Have we solved that case yet? Commander, any suspects, anything along there in terms of progress for that case?
We're working closely with Gaithersburg City Police on that case, and it's nothing that I can actually share tonight. We'll keep everybody updated as the investigation continues.
Well, thank you very much. Well, look, gentlemen, I really just want to say thank you. I want to thank my community for being so engaged and asking excellent questions, really pushing us on so many avenues to be able to think about how we continue to make sure that our police department is more even more responsive to the needs and concerns of the community, to make sure that we're aware of all the great things that are happening when it comes to fire prevention, to be aware of the programs that are out there to protect the most vulnerable in our community, and that we have a prosecutor that will be there to ensure that those who try to prey on our community are prosecuted and kept from continuing to bring scourge and challenges to our community for those hardworking individuals who just want to continue to live their lives each and every day. I really want to thank Montgomery Village for, again, stepping up and attending this great meeting. I want to thank my colleagues, both Council President Katz, Councilmember Albornoz, and Councilmember Juando. I want to thank Delegate Alcivero for coming out. I really want to thank Dr. Daca. And also just a reminder again that all of our services are available via text. You can text 911 as well, so you don't actually have to call. Text 911 is actually a service that we decided to ramp up to make sure that it's even safer for those individuals who are fearing in a situation. Look, this isn't the first and this won't be the last of these types of meetings where I want to make sure that you understand who the people are who are there to protect and serve you, and how you can reach them and contact them about concerns that you have in your community. You don't need me to be the one as the intermediary for you to establish and make sure that the relationship between you and the departments are even better and stronger. I certainly want to serve in that role as a convener, but you have the power as an individual in our community to make sure that your concerns are met. That's what this whole process is about. And that's why you heard everyone give their contact information. We will make sure that that's available on our website. We'll be pushing it out via social media as well. I encourage all of you to continue to be vigilant in your communities about what you see, what you want to have happen, and make sure that your voice is heard. And I also encourage you during this COVID time to make sure that you wear your mask, you practice proper physical distancing, and that you remain safe. Thank you again to all of my panelists for all of their time this evening. Thank you to my staff, to both my Chief of Staff, Sharon Ledner, all of my folks in the office, Kristen Tribble, Daniela Moyer-Gaber, Rose Taylor, who lives in the village. Just really want to say thank you to all of you for making this such a fantastic, fantastic event. So thank you very much. Take care. God bless and stay safe.